No, no problem.
And you're on the air.
All right. Great. All right. So what we have on display is selections from our special collections holdings, a lot of which is rare books. We have about 100,000 rare books here, going back to the 15th century in terms of print. The items that we have selected here are a couple of our favorites. So this one was selected because of the imagery that you can see. So this is a text from 1555. It actually shows what they imagine sea creatures or sea monsters look like.
Okay.
So essentially, they're probably looking at whales, but their interpretation of it as these sort of, otherworldly creatures, and you can see the images that they created there. A similar image is down here at the bottom. This is a later edition of Paradise Lost by John Milton, but illustrated by Gustave Doré, and his illustrations are very reminiscent of that sort of 16th century image of these sea creatures and these beasts.
And that's 16th century there too, right?
This one is later, so this is 19th century.
19th century, okay, that's why it's so
It's much
detailed.
Yeah, much cleaner image, much more detailed, certainly than what you get in the 16th
Sure.
century. And then some of our oldest items in the case, these three are part of our cuneiform collection, and those are tablets that were handmade on clay about 2,500 years ago. So they date back to between 570 and 630 BCE. So
Okay, well they're older than the papyri then.
yes, older than the papyrus.
What is this stuff on there?
So that whole thing there is a camel shoulder bone.
Oh, so the Quran was written on, they wrote on the bones.
Yep. So they wrote like essentially excerpts from the Quran on bones, on slate, on stone, sort of on a variety of different surfaces.
Is that what that is? Is that the Arabic?
Yep. So that's in Arabic, and that's a portion of the Quran that is our one of our students has translated. I think
it's the last chapter.
Yes, it's the end. It's the 6-verse last chapter of the Quran, so the very end of the book.
And is this from the Paris Library? You know, because that's where the gem of their papyri, I guess, would be considered. And that's what I've read. I don't know for sure. But do you know what this dates from?
So no, we're not sure. We probably think it's about 18th or 19th century because it's later. So the text is much older, but the actual physical object is later. And it was taken from a missionary who was from PTS, from here at Princeton, who went out and did missionary work, and then brought back with him this camel bone.
Wonderful.
That
is so wonderful, yes.
It's one of our more odd objects, for sure.
Well, no. I mean, but they had to write on something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean,
which is
and
pretty
this
cool.
because everything else would just disintegrate.
Yep,
So.
especially in the sand and the heat and everything, that will survive.
And what have we got here?
And then this is actually a pic that Lydia made. This is a history. This is a history of essentially North and South America from the 1670s that was written to people back in Europe to explain what the world looked like in this side of the planet. Among their descriptions, they describe these fantastical beasts, including dragons, these weird sort of cuttlefish or something, or octopus, and then these strange sort of
Okay, new beast in the new world.
Yep,
And you're
exactly.
Lydia, right?
Yeah. Interestingly, the text is talking about like Magellan. You can see right under the cuttlefish. You can kind of make out that that's
Yes.
Magellan in German.
So that's kind of Old English, isn't it? Or Middle English? Or
It's actually a Middle German.
Middle
language,
German.
So what it
no
is?
wonder I couldn't read it.
Yeah. And it's originally written in Dutch, translated into German for a German audience back in Germany. And throughout the entire book, there's a lot of illustrations and images and stuff, which is pretty cool.
Magnificent.
And then very down at the bottom, our newest item in the collections. This is from the early 1900s, 19-teens. This is a gentleman who he wrote poetry inspired by bird song, and so you can see his poetry there. And then up in the corner, he actually wrote out what the bird song sounded like if you were to put it on like an actual musical verse. So you could play it theoretically. Or sing it, I guess.
How wonderful.
And he did that for each of the birds, about 180 birds that he did, that's a lot of work.
Well, if you love what you've done, then you're going to be good at it, So.
And we picked particularly the goldfinch because it's the state bird of New Jersey. So we
Really?
so we
did
wanted
not
to show
know
off.
that.
Yeah.
Well, learn something every day.
Which is pretty cool.
This is wonderful. Anything else you got?
Yeah, then we have our miniature book collection. This you may have to zoom in quite a bit to see. And these are mostly from the 19th century, though we do have some earlier texts. And they're almost all biblical texts, aside from
Wow.
a couple. So we do have a miniature Quran right there.
Did they really write that small?
It's printed, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
it's okay. Well,
So
that was
all of-
1400s, right?
Yeah, that was when printing came about. And this is really mostly between 1850s and 1900 when printing was able to be done at such a small scale. So even this tiny, tiny text there, that is the entire Holy Bible, and it's from 1896.
Well, the reason I ask is because in Edwards's day, in the early 1700s, the money was so tight that he would write on receipts. He would
yeah.
write on letters.
Any scrap of paper he could find, right?
And this was the things that he wrote are just mind blowing. That ended up in theological books and our classics.
Yep.
And so he's writing all this stuff on whatever he can get his hands on.
Yeah.
So the reason I say that is because he had to write tiny.
Yeah.
I mean, by necessity, you know.
Yep.
And so I was just thinking, is this Edwards stuff here?
Well, you can see an example of early tiny handwriting right there in this book. So it's actually a 17th century book that someone added a little extra page to in order to handwrite notations about it. So that bottom part that's in that darker ink is all handwritten.
Wow.
It's very tiny, yeah.
That's so crazy.
It's just nuts. And then the smallest ones we have here, we actually have a magnifying glass so you can actually see them. That's an entire New Testament in very, very tiny print. And you would actually wear it around your neck in this locket. So you
Right.
could carry the New Testament with you, keep it close to your
Well,
heart.
sure,
which is
sure.
pretty amazing. And then next to that is a small 20th century version of the Ten Commandments, where each page has one commandment on it, because it's that small,
How nice.
which is pretty cool.
Very nice.
And then finally, our smallest cuneiform tablet. So this is similar to those that we saw in the first case. This one is from about 1500 BCE, so it's about 3,500 years old.
Okay.
And it's a small seal for a king, essentially, at the time. So this was created about 3,500 years ago, and it's the smallest one we have in the collection.
Were these like discoveries that somebody donated to you guys?
Yeah, so the cuneiform stuff came to us as a big donation in the early 20th century, and the guy who donated it collected about 2,500 cuneiform tablets, and we've added to it since then, so there's about 3,000 or so now in our collection.
You guys don't have any papyri on this campus, do you?
We have a couple small pieces, but they're very delicate, so we don't bring them out.
I know. And I went to and I was in New York City for a couple of months, and I went to the Morgan.
Oh yeah, they've got some.
But it's just like, it's the same. You have to, I don't know why I was.
Requested or something.
Well, I don't know. You have to have a researcher's license or something. You have to have a very good reason for them to bring it out. So I'm not surprised that you guys don't have it out on display, but I wanted to go over to Dublin, and they had just finished. Dublin is the mecca for, not to mix metaphors, but is the mecca for papyri. As far as the most significant papyri, like P46 and 72 and 4.
Yeah.
I don't know if those exact ones are there, but they've got such a ton of it. And they had a display out for 3 weeks or so. And of course,
cool.
I just
missed it.
missed it. Yeah, just lucky enough
Yeah.
to miss it. So.
Well, and we had for a long time here. This was a while ago before we were here, but one of the faculty members here worked on the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Oh.
And so they had a traveling exhibit that came here for a number of weeks, but we didn't get to keep any of them, sadly. So
Well, at least you had that. Yeah,
but
you're
we had
able.
them in the building for a little bit, and the faculty member retired maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and he kept a lot of records and stuff about his work on it, which we do have here, which is interesting. But no actual scrolls, just
Okay.
his kind of research notes and stuff.
Let me see where we're at. Okay, let me go ahead. I got to stop it and start it again because